Hello, everyone. My name's Ricardo with Linners and Wosers, and today I bring you a special episode. It's a World Cup qualifying match between the United States and Mexico, and I have with me my friend Nick and our friends over at DasChampions joining us, going over some roster reaction, some expectations that we have looked forward to this game, and just a little discussion looking forward to tonight's match in Cincinnati. We'd like to hear your thoughts, your predictions towards the game, but without further ado, let's go ahead and listen to the
We
podcast.
are fortunate enough to be joined by the fellas over at Linners and Wosers, Nick and Rico. Nick, what's going on, man?
How's it going? I'm excited. We got the World Cup qualifier game against Mexico in a couple days, and I'm just super excited to see what Gregg puts out.
Hell yeah. Rico?
Hey, I'm really excited to be on the show again. Really excited and really looking forward to go ahead and dive deep into this selection from Gregg. Looking forward to the World Cup qualifying match against Mexico here.
Nice. And then we've got the functional degenerate that goes by the name of Ryan Tooney. Ryan, what's up, sicko?
Oh, not much. Just trying not to degenerate right in front of all of you. But I'll try my diction to get a little bit better here throughout. I'm excited as well, but I am apprehensive, trying to stay positive and not think that we're going to just relapse into passivity and poor play. But yeah, we'll get to more of that.
Yeah, so Ryan and I, seeing that we're so depressed, Rico and Dick, maybe we could lean on one of you guys to highlight some of the positives about what's going on with this international break.
Well, it's good to see Scally being called up for the first time. I thought it was kind of incredible that he didn't get called up last month, so I'm very excited to see him. And also that we get to see back-to-back call-ups for Chris Richards, so I feel like he might be finally getting on Gregg's side, and we'll see him get some minutes over this window.
Yeah, I'm really excited specifically in some of the selection of the players. I think there's a lot of competition in the goalkeeping, defenders, and even in the forward three that I think the U.S. might play. I know that Gregg talked about not having that traditional number 9, and we'll go ahead and get more into that, I'm sure, later. But another positive that I like to go ahead and point out is another Colorado Rapids player having his third game against Mexico, if he does get the minutes. That's midfielder Kellen Acosta. I know that there's some questions raised on that selection, and we'll go ahead and discuss on that, I'm sure. But that's a positive on my end. Also, like Nick just mentioned, Scally. That'll be really exciting just to go ahead and see how that right back position really works out for Gregg in these next 2 World Cup qualifying matches.
Yeah, on the competition note, I'm pretty excited to get to see Sam Vines. He's had a good recovery from injury. He's gotten a bunch of minutes since coming back, and it feels like a pretty merit-based inclusion here to get him in over Bello. We'll see if he gets any time against Mexico. I kind of doubt that'll happen, but maybe against Jamaica in the second game. And yeah, it's just good to see that type of movement within the squad.
Yeah, being a Colorado Rapids fan, it's definitely good to see Sam Vines being in the thick of it with everybody. So yeah, I think he'll get some minutes against Jamaica. I don't think we'll see any minutes against Mexico. I think Anthony Robertson has to be our man that game. But yeah, just as a Colorado Rapids fan myself, I'm definitely glad to see Vines here.
And I think just to go ahead and close it off for me on a big positive here is the inclusion and the welcome back of Christian Pulisic. Guys, it was kind of nice to see him get back into training with Chelsea and then getting some minutes over the weekend just to kind of go out there and get that cardio session, get into the flow of the game, understanding what the speed will be like. I think these next few days, these days especially in the U.S. camps, just kind of getting back into physical shape and kind of looking forward as to how many minutes Christian Pulisic is going to get against Mexico. That's a whole conversation right there. What time he should be subbed on, if you think he should be subbed on, if you think he's a starter, just kind of what the idea could look like right there. But I think it's just an overall positive to see Mr. Pulisic back into the lineup, that our number 10, Captain America. He kind of brings off that atmosphere of that intensity, and he's definitely a threat out wide when he gets the ball. So definitely want to make sure that we touch on that. Christian Pulisic back into the lineup for the U.S. men's national team.
Can't be sad about that. Well, I think that's just enough positives for Ryan and I to tolerate. I don't know if we can take much more. We like to keep a mildly depressed demeanor over here. Why don't we jump into the positions? Why don't we start specifically with the goalkeepers? We've got Sean Johnson, Zach Steffen, Matt Turner. Where's our head at, Nick?
So I think it's only between two at the moment. I think when you bring a third goalkeeper, you don't talk about minutes too much with him, so I don't think he'll feature at all this window. But I think we're just going to see Matt Turner start. He's getting good minutes with the Revolution. They're coming off winning the Supporters' Shield in the MLS and having a bye week in the playoffs for the MLS. So I just think he'll start. And I'm not actually too sad about it. I think he's a good shot stopper. I think the way Mexico will possess, and with who I think Gregg will start in defense, I think we'll be seeing a lot of low block from us, and I think he'll be seeing a lot of shots from distance. So I'm not too worried about Matt Turner starting.
Yeah, for me, the only, I guess, point of contention, it's not even for me personally. I actually kind of want to dispel the point of contention, is there's the young kid playing for Chicago. What's his name, Alex?
Gabriel Slonina.
And I know that we want to get him into camp and integrated in some capacity, and especially get him tied up with the U.S. But I think for these type of games, it makes way more sense to wait on that, have a veteran guy come in, and then try to address getting him integrated into the system in general in the December camp.
Nick, where's your head at?
Yeah, I don't know where Nick is, but I'll go ahead and put my 2 cents here on the goalkeeper position, if you guys don't mind. I'm just going to go ahead and hop in. Kind of agree with him there on the fact that Sean Johnson, great opportunity for him to be here at the camps. Yeah, third-string goalkeeper. We're not really discussing minutes there. And in terms of who will go ahead and get the starting position against Mexico, I like to go ahead and probably, predict that it's going to be Matt Turner. He is pretty good shot stopper. I think with, just as Nick said, if Mexico does hold a lot of that possession there, we'll be facing a lot of those low blocks, and he is, I believe, an overall better shot stopper than Zach Steffen. It is a close race. I think Zach perhaps is going to be better with the ball at his feet, just kind of moving it up the field. But I think in this situation, just based on form, and I think just who I think Gregg might lean towards to might be Matt Turner. But if he goes ahead and selects Steffen, it's not necessarily a big L right there. I think it's still safe hands, pun intended. We'll be able to go ahead and rely on both the goalkeepers, but my prediction is going to be on Matt Turner.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Turner will be the choice. And I'll kind of take this as an opportunity to touch on. I'm fairly idealistic about the way I think the team should play in terms of their mentality and how they should impose themselves upon the game. So I would kind of prefer to have Zach Steffen playing, because he's better with his feet, and including him is signaling toward playing in a manner that I think is the way we should play. I think that we're at a point now where we can just be of a higher quality and actually even have a chance to battle Mexico and beat them, which hasn't always been the case. We've had to be the more reserved team oftentimes. It's I agree, Ricardo, though, that it's gonna be Turner in terms of being the safe hands.
It raises some questions for me in terms of how we're going to go ahead and build up from the back, just because, again, that right back position, there's some questions there. If we're going to go ahead and integrate Scally, I know that some of his highlight reels, he is pretty good on the ball and progressing it up the field in the Bundesliga. I don't know how much of that will go ahead and correlate over for the U.S. men's national team style of play. And then there's also the possibility that DeAndre Yedlin is going to be there playing right back. And honestly, I think sometimes my heart starts beating really fast when he gets the ball. And sometimes he has great moments of going up the field, and, his pace is definitely an advantage. But it's just With the right back position, I'm not too entirely sure with Serginho Dest being out, if possession coming from the back is going to be there. And also the exclusion of our center back, John Brooks. I know we'll go ahead and touch up on a little bit on that, but I think he's our best center back in terms of progressing the ball in passing from the back. So with his absence, I'm kind of worried if Gregg is going to go ahead and still look at progressing from the back, especially from a team like Mexico, who's going to go ahead and, I think, look to hold possession majority of the game.
Why don't we jump into the defenders specifically? I hear you on Brooks. I hear you on Yedlin. Ryan, kick us off on our defensive unit. Like, which player do you want to start off with in your evaluation?
So I guess I'll just start with the fullbacks in general, because I think we can kind of conceive of Scaly specifically as a swing back. He looks to be a guy that can play on either side. Mostly he's a right back, but he's capable on either one, as he's demonstrated all season for Gladbach. For me, Antoine Robinson, clear-cut left back. Took way too long for him to be officially recognized in this capacity, but it is what it is at that point. With the right back position, I personally, like Ricardo was saying with Scaly, I'd prefer to have him be the one playing, but I think I consider DeAndre Yedlin a safer pair of hands than most people do. He's a consummate professional, a journeyman. He's gone in a bunch of different spots. He's been playing in Europe. He's been playing really well recently. And this is one of those things where it goes back to I want us to play like we're the better team more often. And I think Scaly gets us there, but I think it might be a bit too soon to throw the kid in, and would be very comfortable with Yedlin.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there. I think Gregg is most likely going to look over at Yedlin to go ahead and start against Mexico. I think it's a little too soon to go ahead and use Scaly there to play over in the right back position, but who knows? This Gregg mentioned that this World Cup qualifying window is a pretty short, but at the same time long window. So we'll get to see how he performs and gets that experience with the U.S. training camps, and then maybe some minutes there against Jamaica. I don't know. What about you, Nick? What are your thoughts?
I'm really just interested in these center backs that we selected. I just want to know, like, where Gregg's mind's going to be. Are we going to play? I feel like he's going to play Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson together, and I just wonder if that's what we want, because I've seen online that the narrative that Walker Zimmerman had an excellent last window, and I can agree that it was pretty good, but I don't know if he would be my choice over Richards. What do you guys think?
So I, once again, back to I wish we would play like we're the better team. I want Chris Richards in there. I think that by the time the World Cup comes around, he will be considered our best center back. He's got all the tools to be a top level center back. I think maybe the only thing I've seen lacking from him, and this one is, setting a high bar, is the type of like long crossfield passing that can really like open a team up, a la Virgil van Dijk. But that's setting a high bar. You do see him get some great mid-range and long passing, but I really think he's better. But I think that Gregg is probably going to adopt a fairly conservative approach here, and I just wouldn't be surprised to see Walker Zimmerman in there for those reasons.
Yeah, I think since we scored like our 3 of our last 4 goals against Mexico from set pieces, I think he'll probably just think, since Walker Zimmerman had a good last window, and then since he's tall and good in the air, he'll probably just try to stick him in there. And I know it's going to be probably not the progressive play you want, but I think he's going to try to use that old style, old USA versus Mexico style that he used to play to try to win this game.
I sometimes try not to think too much of what Berhalter would do, in the same way that I try not to think too much of what Jeffrey Dahmer would do. But I'm hopeful that he'll play Zimmerman on the bench, and he'll start Chris Richards. That would make me happy. Chris Richards is by far and away the better talent, and I want to be focusing on snotting teams, not being really solid defensively and relying solely on set pieces. Ryan, get a word in, man.
I don't even know where you're going with that. There's a lot of avenues that we could go with. But speaking of what what
But you having a hard time getting your thoughts together now?
what Berhalter wouldn't do, he certainly wouldn't call in who I think fairly right now would be considered our best center back. I know he had a bad September window, but that's, I think, contextually, you can make arguments one way or another there. Brooks has performed pretty well, and it is nothing short of a snub for him not to be included.
Yeah, I don't even want to go ahead and hop on the thought of Gregg into choosing John Brooks. Actually, not selecting John Brooks. I was listening a little bit into his Zoom interview, and he was talking about there was a lot in that balance in selecting that U.S. men's national team form, as well as looking at some of that club form. I know in terms of club form, he was picking it a back up over at Wolfsburg. So what really threw me, across the room and raised the most eyebrows was the fact that this equation that Gregg used to evaluate John Brooks, I guess it's not the same equation that was used to go ahead and evaluate Mark McKenzie, who literally doesn't get the minutes over at Genk, and I think has been pretty poor form recently and has been selected for the U.S. men's national team. And so I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
I agree, man. I mean, Mark McKenzie was like, I remember in a game against Mexico not that long ago. God, what I forget what tournament it was. He was the reason why Mexico went up like 1-0 in the first, Nations League in the first 2 minutes of the game. So yeah, McKenzie hasn't been good for club, and he has not historically been good against Mexico.
I know there was word about, Mark McKenzie is the type of guy, I think, that if Gregg went and had the conversation with him and said, hey, you're a guy we need when the time comes. I think that's a conversation that you can have with him compared as John Brooks. He's, the expectations for him are to be the leader up at the front lines with the guys. So maybe there's a little bit of that player ego there. But I think that's a little bit of also BS because a player like John Brooks, you want to have on the locker room. I think you want to have on the sideline, even if he's not playing. I'm a player of that caliber with that experience for the U.S. men's national team. Even if he's not in good form, I mean, you got to have him there at the camp, to kind of have that form back in there and just kind of bring his knowledge to the game. At a game like this against Mexico, we're trying to overtake him in the table here, and he's not even in the team sheet. And I don't know, just that's my biggest takeaway from this roster right there. I'm just going to point it out now is the fact that his inclusion is not there, but Mark McKenzie's is. No disrespect. There's no personal agenda on the player. It's just I think the evaluation doesn't make sense to me. I'm just going to have to go ahead and sit back and watch and see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, even in that Nations League final, John Brooks was the best defender in that game. He won every aerial ball. He progressed us going forward the best we could, and McKenzie was the one that let us down in that game. And I don't want to be hard on McKenzie. He had a pretty good last year. He's struggling this season to get minutes, but I just think, if you're going to take everyone by form, then we should be having Miles Robinson, John Brooks, Chris Richards, and Walter Zimmerman maybe, and then I would keep the option open of Zimmerman as my fourth choice, and then, pick your three.
Well, let's talk about one of the guys who's getting snubbed hard. My boy, Matt Miazga, the tall man, team of the month winner in La Liga in Cameron Carter-Vickers. I mean, I feel like Miazga is a snub candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been playing very well for a team that, is going to have to absorb a lot of pressure more often than not in the Spanish league. And yeah, it's unfortunate that he isn't getting a look. Cameron Carter-Vickers also continues to put in good performances at Celtic. It's, to me, a lot of these things have to do with relationship with, this is, a lot of people disagree with this assessment, but I'm just going to say it. If somebody came through MLS channels it seems like they're treated differently than people that didn't come through MLS channels. And Brooks didn't come through the MLS channels. Cameron Carter-Vickers didn't come through MLS channels. Their leash is a lot shorter, it feels like to me. And we'll get to another guy in the central midfield fits this as well.
These guys are just all buddies too. Like, it probably does go down to maybe they just prefer somebody that their friend owns the team or something, or is the head coach. So I could see where you're leaning with that.
For me, guys, I'm going to go a little bit unpopular here. I think the Miazga and CCV snub, I think, honestly, we got to look at it as a little bit of a positive. Not necessarily that they got snubbed and they're not getting called up and that they're being hated and pushed out of the national team. I think just the selection of players and the depth that we have, the players that we have selected, like Chris Richard, Miles Robinson, Walker Zimmerman right now have been performing really well for their respective clubs, and freaking John Brooks, who didn't get the call up, who's been performing really well. He did get the snub, but players like Miazga and Carter and CCV just kind of shows the depth in that position as well. Even though they're performing really well, it's kind of nice to see those options there. So I'm not necessarily looking at it as a huge snub, missed opportunities. It's just, again, for me, it's just seeing that there's depth and pool in that position.
Yeah, I totally agree with it being a reflection of the depth. Part of this is I feel a little frustrated that the team is not being selected in a way that is like everyone applied the same set of standards, or having the same set of standards applied to them. I think we probably all can agree that Brooks is the one true snub in the center back area.
Yeah, trust me, I agree. That is definitely the one true snub. Not only on the center back, I think for me, the full 25-man roster, but I do want to just point out for Miazga, even though, he has had that really good form recently, even earning that team of the month, just want to point out this again might not be the stage scenario for him to go ahead and even get that experience or those moments at camp. The U.S. men's national team really has to focus on these next few games in, overtaking Mexico in the table. And again, a lot of that with our depth pool, you got to start thinking of players that have performed for the U.S. men's national team recently, kind of go ahead and flow that into this window. So I guess his opportunity, if he continues to perform well at club, I'm sure with this winter friendly that's coming up, I'd like to go ahead and maybe see him get the call up if he continues to perform, or even down the road. But I just think right now that should be seen as a positive. But those are my closing thoughts on the defenders as well.
No, it's all good. If Tim Ream, a.k.a. Alcoholic Qui-Gon Jinn, can find the fountain of youth, perhaps he can find his way back into the squad. But I think, unfortunately for Tim Ream, there might be bigger fish to fry at the center back position. Moving on to the center defensive midfield unit, we'll separate this from the center midfielders. The first choice is obviously the new Captain America, Tyler Adams. I don't think there's any debate about that. Kellen Acosta, I'll call him a necessary evil. Sorry, boys over in Colorado. Nick, go ahead and get a word in.
Oh, Kellen Acosta, I just think he's there because he could be just like a last-minute sub if Tyler Adams puts in like a good 80 minutes and you need the last remaining 10 minutes to be nothing but defense, say if you're up. So I just think that's what he's there for, and he's got good experience, especially against them twice this summer.
Yeah, I think Kellen Acosta does have a place in this squad, and he's like the bar that needs to be surpassed in order for somebody else to be the other six. Adams is just far and away the best guy, and then Acosta has tangential benefit in that we saw him slide into the right back position. So if we're in a pinch and you need to not use subs in inappropriate areas, having that type of versatility is really good for the squad as well.
I'm going to build off of that versatility. You're spot on, Ryan. I think he does bring that ability to just go ahead and if we need him to fill in different positions, he is there. He is our necessary evil. He's kind of like that part of your insurance package that, don't really understand it, but he kind of just comes along with it. So you kind of just need to have it there. And our center defensive mid positions with Tyler Adams, Kellen Acosta, I think it's looking nice. I think that right there is a good A and a good B right behind it.
I'm going to note there's a guy who's emerging as a possible option in this pool, a certain Clemson football option that decided to play soccer for FC Dallas instead, but is now playing for Venezia, Tanner Tessman.
I think Tessman's a good player. I just think once he gets a little more minutes for Venezia, then I think he will surpass Kellen Acosta. I just think he's overall pretty good on the ball. He's athletic and he's good at dishing the ball, and he has a nice touch. So I just think once he gets the minutes together and more chemistry with his teammates, which he's already starting to feature more in games, I think he's just going to get better. And I think we'll see I think that option will be quicker than we think.
Yeah, Al and I had been talking about this guy for a while now. He's been a Tanner Tessman truther for, I don't know, quite a while. And Tessman has been getting on the field more and more for Venezia. I don't believe he's there where it should be like you even consider him a snub. It's just interesting to think about how in the future, and maybe as Nick, I think you kind of alluded to there, it's sooner rather than later, we may be seeing him really kind of by his performances demand inclusion in this squad. I don't know that he's got the ability to pass up Adams, and obviously he's not a like for like guy like Adams, but it gives us something a little bit different. And I'm getting more and more excited to see what this kid looks like come April and then maybe October and running up to the World Cup roster selection. It really, it's for me really exciting to see how will the team develop, assuming we qualify, of course.
Yeah, and essentially, say if Adams is getting a ton of minutes, you could see a midfield full of like a Tessman, Busio, McKinney that brings something a little different. You get a little chemistry on the club level and the same country level. And I think like having Tessman maybe someday in the future will bring a different dynamic that you can switch tactics if you need to.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that he emerges, but I don't think it's necessarily safe to call him a snub at the moment. But you know that I love Tanner Tessman, and I'm the one who brought him into this conversation. Moving on to the center midfield group. Man, Weston McKennie. Is he the best? Is he in the best form? And by best form, I mean, is he like the most effective U.S. men's national team player right now?
Yes.
Yeah, the short answer, yes. I'm with you, Nick, on that. The kid is an absolute beast. The way Conte is talking about him, I'm air quoting right now because the rumors have been flying a little bit. But I think just for him to get talked about like he could be his Arturo Vidal over at Tottenham is super high praise from a very good manager. And the way you see him play with Juventus, and especially that last game against Fiorentina, the guy is getting incredibly good and comfortable on the ball, and he knows what he's capable of. He's able to exploit situations like to their fullest. It's a pleasure to get to watch this kid develop and his confidence grow.
Yeah, when the media is on his side and he's got all the confidence in the world, he progresses and develops so much quicker. So I just think he needs to be a little responsible and just play his game, and I think we'll see the best out of Weston.
Even when the media is not on his side, he's still pretty good at developing and playing good ball. I don't know if the media has ever been on Weston's side in the last 2 years, whether it's getting grilled for going to the zoo or hanging out with chicks or just the Juventus fan base in general. But Weston is a total baller, and I'm super excited to see him kick some ass and take some names. The truth be told, there's no Mexican midfielder that can hang with him. He is a matchup nightmare, and is even more of a matchup nightmare when we're looking at set pieces. Moving on down the list, we've got Eunice Musa and Gianluca Busio. If you're deploying a midfield, Adams is a locked-in starter. You've got Weston, probably is a locked-in starter, and then you've got this decision between Musa and Busio. Where's your guys' heads at on those guys? Who are you going to start in the midfield if you're rolling out three players? Nick, I want to hear your take first.
I just think I I definitely want to see Musa because I was very impressed in that one match where they're all three together. So I just want to see a little more of that. Busio is nice to come on and bring a little more tempo to the game if it needs to be. But I think just with how dynamic Musa is, I think we'll see I don't think the Mexican team has seen a player like him for the U.S. in a while. So I think he'll be dangerous.
I don't disagree at all. Rico, you got any take?
Yeah, I'd like to see Musa too. I'm not going to lie. I think he does bring a style of play where he can go ahead and drive the ball up the field. And the link-up play with our front three, if we do have a good front three, will be exciting to see. I think if we put out a lineup throughout the game, even with our subs, that revolves a lot around pace, that still will be a lot to see. Truthfully, guys, this might be a little unpopular. Not a huge fan of Busio. I think he does lose the ball a lot, and a lot of his tactical, decision-making going up the front, moving the ball forward, just raises a lot of eyebrows to me. I think he reminds me of a lot of a French player, Guendouzi. Just kind of when he does make the good passes, it's mostly 5-10 yards, pretty close sideways passes. And I'm not, you might be seeing a lot different from me. I'm just not a huge fan from Busio. I actually would like to see Musa play in that front three.
Rico, I got to say it's nice having you here because I'm not the one with the hot takes anymore. So thank you. Ryan, where's your head at?
So I think that Musa is probably a better foil for Mexico than Busio. I think that his ability to kind of put the ball on the ground and drive at the opposition defense will give the aging Mexican midfield a ton of problems. And it fits with my ideal of wanting to play a little bit more front foot. If we were trying to counterattack, I would prefer to have Busio out there, I think, because I respect his ability to spray the ball long. So if we're trying to do more of a counterattacking thing, that's where my head would be at.
He's also a set piece specialist, so I think Busio would be nice in maybe late stages to come on and maybe kill off the game there. But no, I think honestly, I don't know, Rico, if I agree, because from what I've seen of Busio is he hasn't even played 1/3 of the season yet in Serie A. And I've seen him just struggle and lose the ball in the beginning of the seasons to now dictating the game a little more for Venezia. He's been getting some of the best ratings on the squad and team of the week, I believe. Plus, I don't know, I've been pretty impressed. And I think as we see him progress a full year there, I think we'll see him become a better player because we saw his talent at Sporting KC, and I think he could progress better because he's still a young guy.
I didn't realize he won Team of the Week. That's pretty cool. I did watch the game against Roma, and
don't quote me.
Oh no, okay, I'll double check that. So I saw the game against Roma, and Roma's was I think 4th in the table, right? So Champions League quality team, and that's Juventus isn't up there even. So and Juventus is having a bad season, but Busio played extremely well in that game. And some of the mistakes that he was making early in the season, he seems to be correcting. He's using his body well. He's finding passes and using space really well, and that first touch has really been on point. Kind of the exact thing that you would hope he would develop in Serie A, he seems to be developing. And the one thing that's left to be desired is the one trait you would almost assume all American players have, which is his speed. He's not the fastest dude.
Sorry, I think he's in the running for Venezia's Player of the Month. That's all.
Okay. No, that's great too. I mean, they're winning games. Rico, where's your head at?
I just want to point out that I am pro his career success and his growth. I want to see him, continue to develop into a great player. If he's in contention for Venezia's Player of the Month for his previous performances, congratulations to that. I was just bringing in, just from the bits that I was seeing, he just seemed to lose the ball a lot, and you just getting accustomed to the style of play that Serie A is, and that Venezia just needed to go ahead and find their right footing. I think his selection for the U.S. men's national team in this World Cup qualifying window I think it's honestly a great selection. I think, just as you guys mentioned, he does bring a little bit of that ability on the ball onto if he wants to go ahead and be subbed on, to go ahead and initiate those counterattacks. It's just with an opponent like Mexico who does like to go ahead and hold possession, and I think they might press on the ball as soon as they lose the ball with multiple people pressing on you. It'll be kind of interesting to see if he does get those minutes, what he's like in those closed spaces, if he can get out of those closed spaces and ball progression. Just kind of want to go ahead and actually that's what I'll be kind of looking at from all of our midfielders is just what ball progression they can make coming from the pressure from Mexico. So I'm just going to go ahead and just, I guess, take a more optimistic look at Gianluca Busio. Just kind of take the hop on the brakes a little bit on this overlooking that I've been doing, and I don't know, take it easy. I mean, I still want to go ahead and see if a midfield of Adams, McKennie, and Musa, but if we're all in favor for that Busio sub sometime throughout the game, I guess that's a better substitution than the other two guys in the midfield position.
Yeah,
I was just gonna
that's
say.
definitely true. The other two guys in the midfield are Sebastian Leggett. Now, this dude has a pass completion percentage that's absolutely off the charts, but that's because he plays hospital balls to his goalkeeper. And then we've got Christian Roldan, who's probably most famously known for getting body slammed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we were spending a little too much time on the three quality guys we actually do have in the midfield this window, or the center mid position this window. I think we missed out on seeing some pretty good players come instead of out of form Leggett missing the playoffs and Christian Roldan bottling the first place in the West to my Colorado Rapids. So I wanted to see Luca De La Torre or Jordi Mihailovic. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I completely agree that it would be better to rotate those type of fringe players out and get some new blood in there. We need to explore the depth of the pool, and I know it can be a difficult time when you got to play against Mexico, but we know what Leggett and Roldan bring, and we know that it's not the type of play that's going to make us better than Mexico. Luca De La Torre has demonstrated that he is capable in basically all facets. He's got really good, being able to move with the ball at pace and then play incisive passes while he's moving at pace. And then Mihailovic, if we're gonna, give some respect to an MLS player, maybe the guy that leads the MLS in assists is like the guy that you want to give some respect to. It's baffling to me, these type of selections. I would be just ecstatic if our eights here were less Leggett and Roldan and included De La Torre and Mihailovic. I think that would just be, for me, exactly the type of midfield selection we should be doing right now. But Montreal is a small market and Los Angeles is a big market. So what are you going to do?
That's exactly what I think too. Rico, where's your head at?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with both of you there. I am a little disappointed I'm not seeing Luca De La Torre and Mihailovic in this lineup as well. I think Mihailovic leading MLS in assists would have really been great opportunity to see him as part of the roster to kind of get that opportunity to blend with the players, even get some minutes against Jamaica. I think, again, at the end of the day, he would be a better substitution for Sebastian Leggett and Christian Roldan. Now, I just want to go ahead and point out Christian Roldan, if you are going to go ahead and bring in one of those, awful decisions, I guess he's at the bottom or the best of the worst. He's not necessarily a player that I was too upset with seeing in the roster, I guess, with just a lot of crap. At the end of the day, it all looks like awful. But don't want to go ahead and overlook the fact that Reggie Cannon was also included in the lineup. And if we're going to go ahead and, bring in those players like Luca De La Torre, I would have rather see him be snubbed and bring in an extra midfielder. Also would have liked to see Sebastian Leggett not get the call up, but they're best friends forever or something. That's why he's here.
Yeah, not to regress too much, I do want to talk about that just for a brief moment. I'm going to note that Reggie Cannon basically isn't playing soccer, and he hasn't been playing for a while. So his inclusion is mind-boggling. Does anyone have any evidence that's counter to that? No, it doesn't look like we do. Okay. All right, so any final thoughts in the midfield before we move into the wingers? Nick, where's your head at?
I just want to throw out one name. I think Alan Sonora for Independiente playing in the Argentine League. He's got 8 goals and assists in 15 matches this year, and he's in form scoring goals it was at right wing, but he's been playing all season, and he's got good ratings in most matches playing cam. So I think he's a versatile player that we haven't seen. If you look through his highlights for this team, he's a very technical player that could shake things up and break down a defense because he plays against the likes of CONCACAF teams, CONMEBOL teams, so it's like similar styles of play. So I would have liked to see him.
That's a great shout, Nick. It would be good to see those type of guys get included, or at least considered in a little bit more. It feels like he doesn't even get talked about by the USSF almost. One name I'll also add, and it is fringe, is Christian Kappas. I think it's kind of similar to what you just brought up, Nick. Guys producing. It's in the Danish league for one of the better teams in the Danish league, but these are the kind of guys that I would really like to get a look at that don't seem to be, getting their fair shake all the time.
Damn, those are some deep snubs. I love that you guys found those. Let's move on to the winger position. I'm going to start with Christian Pulisic. How do we feel? I mean, I think all of you guys feel good about him being included. I guess I'll just start and let you guys grill me for a second. I would have really appreciated him staying at Chelsea and earning that position that I think he's capable of earning and finding his utmost form. There are other players that we could have brought in. We could have brought in De La Fuente. Even though Hop is not playing, it seems like more of a poor move than it does him not being skilled, considering he was like our best forward option in the Gold Cup. Tell me why I'm crazy about Christian Pulisic and why he needs to be in the team.
Because he's Captain America. No, I'm just kidding. I just think I think I think he'll show his value. I don't think he's going to be a 90-minute player. I think he's going to come off the bench. So I think that's where I find it a little crazy because we are going to play Mexico, and I think he rattles the fan base. He rattles the team in general. So I think I want to see him here.
Yeah, I agree. I like the passion Christian brings for the United States when he plays for us. Also, once he gets in the open field, he can completely shred opponents. There's nobody else that we have that can do the type of stuff that he does. I think he's probably in a little bit better game shape than most people are giving him credit for, but there does need to be consideration given to his long-term ability to play and continue to progress at a high level. Hopefully, Gregg doesn't listen to Bob Morocco and kind of stays true to what needs to be done.
Bob Morocco getting the wrong kind of shout out today. Love it. How are we feeling about old Aaronson? That's Brendan Aaronson.
Undoubted my starter. I think he's produced ever since he's put in the red, white, and blue. So I definitely need to see him on the wing.
I'm going to have to agree on that. He's definitely been performing at a top level for the U.S. and at club level. I think his good run of form lately puts him in a locked starting position. He's one of the few, I think, players on this roster for Friday that have, I think, a starter on lock.
Ryan is so pumped. Ryan, how you feeling about what these guys are saying?
No, I completely agree. I actually am Brendan Aaronson is a big game player. He scored in the Austrian Cup final at the end of last season. He scored in both of their games for getting into the group stage of Champions League. The guy, I kind of expect him to do something in this game that is he's up for it. He's gonna bring it, and I actually kind of anticipate. I'm gonna call it now. I think we're gonna see a special moment for Brendan from Brendan in this game.
Ooh, big brother Brendan gonna perform for the men's national team in a time where we need him the most. I love it. I think you're right. That dude can do so much on the field too. He is not limited to one position or another.
Then it's up to Gregg. Is he going to put Weah or Areola? I don't know.
Oh, well, let's talk about Weah before we let Ryan rant on Areola. Tim Weah, I mean, obviously he deserves a spot. I would love to see him start. What position? I mean, he's going to play on the wing. That's his spot, isn't it? Unless Berhalter's going to play him at the 9, like he said he was going to do in that press conference when he was grilled on only bringing 1 9.
I can't imagine that. I think he's going to test Pulisic there for some reason. Maybe Ryan's right. I think he might be in good. He might be in better game shape than we think. So if he's even talking about Pulisic as false 9, I think we might see some minutes there.
Fair enough. Well, why don't we let Ryan grill Paul Areola for a second, and Rico, you're going to come to his defense afterwards. So Ryan, why don't you say something about Paul Areola?
I just don't think that Paul Areola is good enough for the U.S. men's national team. His ball control is basically non-existent. Yeah, he presses, but he basically runs in a straight line at the player, and there's a little more nuance required. If the defense for him is often how hard of a worker he is,
and Berhalter being his father-like figure.
Yeah, I don't know how
holding his child after the game when he doesn't play the minutes that he wants to play, assuring him that everything is going to be okay because I'm going to call you up in the next window.
I thought I was going to grill him, but Paul Areola, like, if his biggest asset is being a hard worker, I just don't know how that distinguishes him from literally any other player that would be called up. Yeah, that's about all I got. Rico, I mean, I'm interested to see what you got, though, for positives.
No, I'm honestly going to have to agree with you there. If he is just going to go ahead and get the call up just to be a hard worker, I know that there's so much negativity around Paul Areola. I mean, I think over and over and over, the chance has been given to him. And I think over and over and over, he is disappointed. But dude, at the end of the day, I guess what I am seeing from Gregg, if I'm just speculating here, I mean, just like Kellen Acosta, he's a necessary evil. I think Paul Areola is just like that, but it just tastes so much worse. I mean, it's just like, dang. Now, why don't we bring on players like Conrad de la Fuente, even Hoppy? Now, I know we brought up the fact that Hoppy has not been playing consistently over at Mallorca. There might be something going on over there, some extra, some exterior circumstances, whatever. And, we have been seeing a little bit of Conrad de la Fuente get minutes over at Marseille in League One. And he does bring, I think, a lot of pace into the United States. With the inclusion of Christian Pulisic and Ricardo Pepe and the exclusion of our traditional number 9s, which we'll go ahead and talk about, I think it's just a lot about that reinforcements on the side. And Paul Areola, again, has had that experience with the U.S. men's national team. Right now is not the time to go ahead and test out players like Conrad de la Fuente, even if it's just for experience over in the training camps. I know it sucks. I know it tastes bad. It's like, an awful shot too much, of that rum instead of the Coke, but you got to have, at the end of the day, a player like Paul Areola. It kind of makes me sick just saying it.
You went full circle on that one. I thought after our rant, we may have convinced you that he's not the remedy we need, but you fell into your own trap.
No, I want to go ahead and see that there's a little bit of positive with each selection at the end of the day. Now, I don't see it with some of them earlier that we spoke about. And the only thing that I can came up with here for Paul Areola is the fact that Christian Pulisic might be being pushed at that inside more as maybe a substitute for Ricardo Pepe. In that league's Timothy Weah out wide, Brendan Aaronson, and I think Paul Areola, even though he's had that chance over and over and over. And honestly, all it takes is for him to score or even get a hockey assist in either of the games to a goal that's unrelated, even if we're up or something, or if we're down a lot, whatever is going on. Even if he gets a hockey assist or the big chance created, it'll be enough for Gregg to be like, you performed at an expectation. We want you back, and that's kind of sad from a player like that. But just trying to think of the positive, guys.
Nick, where's your head at?
I don't know. I just hope Areola doesn't play. I sometimes like to think my Areolas are greater than Areola, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
I
damn,
want to
Farmer
move on.
Fran over here.
I want to move. I want to move on to the forwards. Actually, I'm really disappointed not to see Daryl DK here. I honestly have been so impressed with him recently. He has 5 goals in his last 7 matches, and he just scored a nice clutch one recently for Orlando. So if we're going to talk about any forwards in form, then why not DK? I wonder why Gregg is trying to choose this. He doesn't want to bring a true number 9 into this camp.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I feel like we've kind of like danced around this a little bit. The idea that perhaps we're not going to see the traditional 4-3-3, at least in terms of like what the expectation is from the number 9 that we're used to saying. I think Jesus Ferreira, not Corona, wrong team. Jesus Ferreira signals this pretty well because he plays 10 for club mostly, and I think the one time that he played for the U.S. men's national team, he was playing in more of a false 9, and yeah, I wonder if that's kind of the reason that we see some of these player selections is Gregg does intend to do things a little bit different with the front line. Really interesting time to decide to do something different with the front line. The biggest game yet. But I personally do think that like not bringing in somebody like Daryl DK or Jordan Pfolk or even Josh Sargent for that matter is not the right thing to be doing right here. We need to I think have some stability and more of a guy that we know up top can hold the ball up and play off of. And I personally, I know Josh gets a lot of shit and he's not in great form and Norwich is terrible, but he is by far, if you got a guy that you want to play the ball into his feet, he can actually take 1 or 2 touches or maybe only 1, and then you can consistently play off of him in tight space. It's Josh. Yeah.
Yeah, Guy, I'm going to go ahead and just go off of the exclusion of Joe Sargent and Daryl DK and Jordan Pfolk. The U.S. going away from the traditional number 9 with that, what they've been looking like they've been doing for the past, 10 years with some of the players that have been playing the number 9. And I'm just seeing the quality of pressing and, like you said, Ryan, in tight spaces that Josh Sargent brings to the U.S. men's national team. It would have been nice inclusion, but he's been performing rather poorly over at Norwich. They recently just got their first win. And Daryl DK, on the other hand, who's been performing on form, doesn't get the call up. And instead, we're seeing Ricardo Pepe, Jesus Ferreira, players who are going to go ahead and most likely, just like you said, Jesus Ferreira played that number 9, that deeper. I'm losing my thought here. That false number 9 that comes in deeper, and what raises some eyebrows for me is the fact that if Jesus Ferreira gets the nod against Mexico and he does play that style of getting the ball deeper, a little bit closer to our half line as a false number 9, if that kind of cuts space or overlaps into the space for Eunice Musa, and then maybe we're going to go ahead and see a more flat midfielder, a midfield line of 3 in the flat. I personally wouldn't like to see that. I would like to see players like Ricardo Pepe just get higher up the field and then have those 2, Tyler Adams just kind of be by himself in that center defensive mid with kind of Weston McKennie doing his 8 box to box. I don't want to see a flat midfield of 3. That's the only concern that I see here with a player like him as a false 9 coming back in. Again, we do lack some of those defensive players that can go ahead and bring the ball up. It also depends on if Stefan will go ahead and play a player like him on the ball. Just have to go ahead and see the style of football that Gregg plays. And I know that that's not very convincing to see right off the bat. Nick, what's going on?
I really wanted to see Brian White, honestly. I think he offers you a little bit of both. He's a good finisher, but from what I really like seeing him recently, he's really good at making runs. He definitely goes down the inner channels and connects with the wingers cutting in a little bit more, and I think that's just would have been the perfect position for him to come off. And he's got the stats to prove it already. He's got, let me see here, he's got 6 goals and 4 assists in his last 8 matches, so I thought he would have been perfect for the call up, but I'm kind of disappointed not seeing him, to be honest.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Brian White. It's not that I would necessarily like to see Brian White. Like, I would have rather had P. Folk, who's got the highest goals per 90, and I know it's not all about that, but he basically goes into games and scores goals. Or Daryl DK, who's right up there and like a physical mismatch waiting to happen, especially considering our dominance in set pieces, or Josh Sargent, who's experienced way more than any of our other nines. And even though he's playing for crappy Norwich, he's still like one of their more trusted players. It's not that I didn't want to see Brian. I thought those guys would be better, but Brian was a significantly better option than Areola or Leggett or Roldan. Like, maybe there's something there, and you see these journeymen in other sports, like in the NBA, like Robert Covington is a great example. In the NFL, Kurt Warner was a great example. There's these players who are like these journeymen who play in like the D League or like, the minor leagues, and then all of a sudden they hit an age and it's like, where the hell did this person come from? Why are they good? Brian White came up through the college system. He spent all of his time at Duke, and his movement off the ball, exactly what you said, Nick, is spot on. Like, his ability to check in and time his run perfectly is really impressive. And this is coming from a guy who doesn't like really appreciate too much of what comes out of the MLS, and his finishing is like really solid too.
Yeah, I just think it's a good option, especially if you're gonna, snub some names that. And I can understand PFOC. He's only scored 1 goal since September 25th. Sargent only 2 goals in Norwich in general, but like you said, I'm sick of the same MLS journeyman that we keep. Not journeyman that you mentioned, but I'm sick of the same MLS guys that we keep seeing that have not performed well in a competitive match. I keep bringing them to the January camps. I don't care, but I don't want to see them in these competitive matches anymore. So I'm frustrated. I'd rather see some other guys that are, all based off of merit in the MLS currently that should be called up.
I'm right there with you. We've got some interesting stats since the last window. Which one of the Linners and Wosers is going to present those stats?
Yeah, I don't mind. I can go ahead and read you guys some fun stats here. Since our last window here, Reggie Cannon only's had 161 minutes since the Gold Cup final. He's had a pretty bad run in form, pretty much no fitness either. Areola, our savior for the U.S. men's national team, our Messi Areola, 176 minutes, 1 goal. He's not fit either. Just as Nick mentioned, another selection there that raises eyebrows. Christian Roldan for the Sounders, 540 minutes, 1 goal, 1 assist, 3 man of the matches. His season form has been pretty decent. I think he's racked up about 5 goals, 6 assists, 1 goalkeeper wrestle match. Sebastian Leggett for LA Galaxy, he's been at 358 minutes, only 2 goals. As a midfielder of his quality, they didn't even go ahead and qualify for the playoffs here, and he's been pretty poor. Another selection that raises eyebrows. Why is he there? Experience? Yeah, sure. Jesus Ferreira, 2 goals, 2 assists in last 450 minutes. It's pretty decent for a player of his caliber. And Ricardo Pepe, a fan favorite, 188 minutes in last 4 matches. He's had no goals or assists, and he's missed a PK. But he is a fan favorite, and he has shown for the U.S. men's national team and in MLS that he is a proven goal scorer. So he'll be exciting to see this weekend. And moving on, Hoppy, only 89 minutes all season for the club. Mallorca, that's pretty poor. What's going on there? Why is he not getting that playing time?
I put that on his agent, squarely on his agent's shoulders. It's a bad move for him. There's other places that dude could have gone, but keep going with the stats. Sorry, man.
No, I totally agree. I was definitely a move that shocked a lot of people, and you could see now that his result here is not paying off for him. Josh Sargent, we've mentioned a couple of times, 2 goals for Norwich. He's not in form. Norwich have been pretty poor this season, only winning 1 match in the Premier League, just recently sacking their manager. PFOC, only 1 goal since September 25th. Brian White, though, has 6 goals, 4 assists in the last 8 matches. That's pretty decent, if not really good form right there. Daryl DK, 5 goals in the last 7 matches, 3 goals in the last 3 matches. That is some pretty good form if you ask me. And then MLS assist league leader with 14 assists all season, 3 assists in the last 7 matches. Mihajlovic, player of that caliber, not getting the call up. Some questions there. And those are all the stats that I have since the last window. Alex.
I appreciate you sharing those. Those are super helpful. The Mihajlovic one is kind of nuts to me. All of them are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
They're great stats. They're pretty fantastic. So press conference with Gregg. I'm just going to cover a few notes before we round out with some final thoughts. Gregg claims that the 9 doesn't need to be a true 9. Pulisic can serve as the 9, as can Weah. Gregg claims that Brooks was left off the roster because of his form with the men's national team, which I guess that rule doesn't apply to everybody. On the counter end of it, Gregg made the selection of Joe Scaley based on his form at club, which is kind of interesting to hear those two viewpoints, a little bit contradictory. Gregg wants Pulisic to play in a safe way, and I'm not 100% sure what that means. Gregg goes on to say that it's a combination of club and country, which leads to the decisions to include or exclude players. And then finally, Gregg said that DK and P-Folk were not selected based on lacking attributes for the game plan. They don't stretch the field enough. They don't have good movement in the penalty box. He expects Pepe to start every game, and he says that Gianluca is pushing for a starting position. So into the madness and trying to understand that. But gang, I guess we'll close out with any final remarks. Ryan, give us your closing take. Go down the list.
Yeah, I'm feeling like we got a win coming against Mexico. I'm really bullish on our team. I think the quality is greater than it's ever been, as you know, most people that follow the team will tell you, and that our midfield is just better than Mexico's, and I think the game is going to be won in that area, given that Gregg doesn't set us up to play passively. I think we can actually kind of take the game to Mexico and show that we have players that are physically more capable, and just too much for them to deal with in really key areas.
Nick, where's your head at?
It just seems like this summer we really climbed a hill with our mentality versus Mexico. So I think going to Cincinnati for the first time and playing there, I think we're going to look good. I think we have a much better team than Mexico on paper and on the field. So I think we're going to win 2-0, and that's going to be my prediction since the game is in a couple days.
Rico?
This is great. This is why I like working with Nick. We have literally the same mind. I was thinking 2-0 as well for the U.S. men's national team. Ryan, I'm with you. Pretty bullish on this team. I think this year it's been a very nice uphill success. I think the progression for the U.S. men's national team has been a thumbs up for me. And I think just how we're going to go ahead and dominate. I think in the midfield, we do have the better players there. I think if Gregg is on one that day and just makes the right decisions and selecting the right players and the right tactics, again, that game is going to be in the midfield. U.S. 2-0, playing in Cincy. I think there's an advantage there. I knew that they were talking about that in the interview, that they specifically took a look at each location that they wanted to have the game at. And when they ran into Cincy, I mean, how can you not have it there, is what Gregg was saying. So hopefully we'll go ahead and have more of a home field advantage there. Thank you. This was awesome.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We definitely kept it real tonight. As always, it's good to hang with our boys, Nick and Rico, at Linners and Wosers. We love doing this type of stuff with you. Brian, thank you for helping put this together as well. Your coordination in this process is fantastic. The game is on Friday. Everyone tune in. I imagine you'll be hearing some more collaborative podcasts between us. And I guess from Fat Ronaldo's children, we encourage all of you to eat up, watch this game, and continue to to support the men's national team. Fellas, we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you.